Thanks everyone for joining me. It's 4th of July week, and to me, that always brings to mind spending time in Washington, D.C. So I'm super excited to have another conversation with author JoAnn Hill from Washington, D.C. So she's now got three books. So we're going to touch a little bit on exploring Washington, D.C. and talk food because that's her newest book. So welcome, JoAnn.
April, it's so good to be back on with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, exactly. So it's an exciting week in Washington, D.C. What kinds of activities are happening in the city this time of year?
Oh, so many things. Obviously, fireworks, but as you can imagine, DC really does a great job with, Independence Day and the whole week leading up. There's like a lot more. I was actually out yesterday on a long walk, the Capitol, the National Mall, and it's just the city is like alive and buzzing, right? There are tour buses, there are tour groups, they do like little mini festivals around the mall.
Oh,
Everything's kind of like decorate. I already saw like, lots of yards decorated with red, white, and blue, getting into the patriotic spirit and so forth. It's just such a fun time to be here. You really feel connected, right? Even more
right.
than the nation's capital. It can get crowded, obviously. So they put on concerts and so forth in the mall too. We've done fireworks on the mall, and it is spectacular, as you can imagine, to be surrounded by the museums and the memorials.
Yeah.
It's just really, it's unique and it's special. So a lot of people will go down there for the mall on the mall to watch the fireworks, and they'll head out early. We have done that a number of times, and it's wonderful. I think now, that we've lived here for so long, and we're going with some friends. We were talking the other day, what are we going to do? And there's a lot of like nice hills that you can kind of perch
Oh,
yourself up on, to watch the fireworks that are still going to be lively, and they'll definitely be full of people, but nowhere near the numbers at the mall. And so I think as locals, a lot of people kind of now kind of venture towards that, finding smaller groups and smaller places. But I definitely still know a lot of people who head down to the mall and join the masses. So it just depends on what you're looking for. But there's no shortage of events or things to do for sure.
right, exactly. And I bet for some people it is a lifetime experience to go experience 4th of July in Washington, D.C. So if people are thinking ahead maybe to plan for next year, since it's kind of late this time of year, do you have
Yeah.
like a tip, like a hotel or some place that's kind of embodies that whole, that spirit of
Yeah.
history, Washington, D.C.?
That's a really great question. You can imagine a lot of wonderful hotels in DC, and it really depends on what someone's looking for. So, if you want like a historical, iconic hotel of Washington, I would say, the Willard, which is near the White House. That's where the mint julep was created. I even talk about that in my newest book. Um, and the hotel is just iconic. There are many, many, many presidents and people of notoriety and
Yeah.
who have stayed there. Along the same area, there's the St. Regis. There's the Mayflower, which the Mayflower is really historical. I have a lot of fun. I have some fun spy stories that took place
Oh.
in my first book, Secret DC. Um, but then if you venture off of that White House downtown area, a super fun area to stay at is the Wharf. So in Southwest DC, which is pretty close to the mall, depending on where you are. The Wharf, they completely transformed the Wharf to kind of almost reminds you of like the Wharf in San Francisco, or it's this lively, really vibrant area down on the water in Southwest, that there are tons of restaurants, hotels, shops. There's the Ben and Jerry's, but it's massive. They had a phase 1 that was completed a couple of years ago, and they just added on a phase 2. It's a multi kind of like billion-dollar
Oh,
transportation
yeah.
area, and you can rent kayaks, and I've gone paddle boarding down there. They have like different boat shares. You can do a boat tour.
Oh,
They
wow.
have, they have a lot of things that you can do. People bike down there. The bike lanes down there are really, really accessible and great and plentiful. There's a beautiful library that just was transformed over there. There's one of my favorite bookstores in DC, Hawks and Prose, which is pretty well known. They have a location at the wharf. So I mean, there's no, they have live concerts. They have, when I say they have it all, um, I like that area, especially I think for people who are visiting. There's so much to do. They're on the water, and
Yeah.
they're close to the mall. They're not too far from Navy Yard, where like National Stadium is. They could catch a ball game. They're not too far from Capitol Hill. Like so, it's a cool spot with also enjoying outdoors and water. And
Yeah.
someone who likes to be on the water, which I do, um, you can get the best of kind of all the worlds. So that's kind of where, I mean, there are other great places too, but that's kind of where I would suggest people stay.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you're still close enough to a lot of different areas. And I imagine for families, because summertime a lot of people are traveling multi-generational, grandma, kids, that would be
Yeah.
a great place because it sounds like lots of different activities.
Yeah. A lot of like nice outdoor spaces too that kids can run around. Um, and I mean, listen, like, the wharf is definitely, it's a highly sought after space. So I'm not going to say that it's, the cheapest option, right?
Right.
So like, but there are a number of different hotels. So I'm assuming there are different price points. But it's like anywhere, it's wise to kind of look into it a little sooner than later to see to get deals. And and have like more of your, because they're going to be a little bit more higher end,
Right.
may be suitable for some people and not fitting for others. And then in terms of seeing fireworks, I mean, you can imagine like, you know, time and is the name of the game, in the sense like to go down to the mall, it's going to be crowded. So if you want to have a certain spot, if you want to be near the Washington Monument, or if that's something
Yeah.
that matters to you, you may want to consider checking out, going down early, right? Like
Right.
really
Right.
that
Exactly.
you're there, and giving yourself them. And what's great about DC is that every museum that is part of the Smithsonian is free, right? And
Yeah.
so the National Mall is lined with all the museums that are a part of the Smithsonian complex. I took a walk with a girlfriend on last week, and we were walking, and it was one of those days, it was like 90 degrees. It was really hot. And it's one of those places too that we're like, let's just like run into one of the museums to go to the
Yeah.
restaurant. I mean, probably not what it's designed for, but you don't have to, you could just, you
Right.
can reprieve, enjoy, walk around, use the restroom, and it's free. So that's really nice. The American Indian Museum, which is in my first book, Secret DC, that it's a stunning museum. It's very unique. It honors, the history of American Indian and the spirit and the culture and so forth, the different tribes and different groups. Um, but the restaurant inside, so not a lot of people think of like a museum restaurant as
Right.
a dining destination. And on the mall, the majority of the restaurants in the museums are more kind of like cafeteria style,
Yeah.
which
Right.
serves the purpose, right? Like for kids and so forth. But if you want something a little bit more elevated, or at least just like authentic food that's unique,
Yes.
the restaurant inside of the American Indian Museum is wonderful. It's American Indian, like, and the chefs and the workers there are of, Native American culture and background and so forth. So you're
Wow.
getting these like tribal cuisines from different regions, like lots of corn and beans and lots of great beef, and they have it's soups, and it's delicious. They're in
Wow.
my unique eats and eateries book too. Like I feature them just because it's unique,
Right.
where people go there just to eat and not necessarily experience the mall, because that's how good the food is. So I would recommend that too. If you're on the mall and you want to duck in to a restaurant, check out the American Indian Museum. You will not be disappointed.
Oh, I
And
love that too, that it ties into American history and that
oh,
it's
it's wonderful. And I think their menu changes, based on seasonality, which is also really nice. And a fun fact, a little sordid fact,
yeah.
that's my first book, is that the American Indian Museum was built on a former brothel site.
Really? Oh my gosh.
So I don't know, I'll keep it PG. But basically during the Civil War era, there was a huge, up to about 100 different brothels that were
Yeah.
in around DC, right? They were very prevalent. And that site particularly was very, very prosperous, and one of actually the most successful and busy brothels in the entire city. It was owned by a woman, Mary Ann Hall. She was this very successful businesswoman, successful madam. It's right near the Capitol, right near
Right.
strategically placed in terms of,
Yes.
travel businessmen and so forth. Anyway, so it's just like a fun tidbit that, the past of the location of the current museum. Yeah.
Right. And then it was owned by a woman too. I love that.
Right. And even furthermore, so there's a cemetery in DC called Congressional Cemetery, and it's in Capitol Hill. It's a pretty well-known cemetery. It's highly regarded. People go there. I've done a number of book events. They do walking tours, they do things related to Halloween. They
Wow.
have a book club, they do cinema nights. I mean, it's not just your average cemetery. It's stunning. The grounds, you can register and become a member and walk your dog there too. And it's whenever I tell people I have a book event tonight at a cemetery, people are like, "What?" I'm like, "No, no.
Yes.
This is not your typical average cemetery. It's a fixture in DC. It's a there's some vice presidents buried there. There are some people of, high esteem buried there. But Mary Ann Hall, the madam who owned that
Right.
brothel, is buried at Congressional. So kind of also shows you just about like her stature in society and
Right.
how highly regarded and respected she was. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that. And I like the fact that the cemetery is doing things that are, making use of that site. So people will get interested because years ago, and that's what I tell people when I go to New England, it's like a lot of cities, the cemeteries are built on the most beautiful place. That's where the best trees are, all of that, because people actually went and picnicked there and did things. So that kind of brings it back, like celebrating, honoring these people that have
Oh, for
been part of
sure.
history.
It's incredible. They actually just did I did a book festival with them they had a book festival a couple months ago that I was part of. They do a holiday market. I mean, it is and they do a great job organizing it. The community really values and treasures Congressional Cemetery. It's just part again, it's a fixture in the neighborhood and really of the city. If you're visiting, it is worth the visit. If anything, just the grounds are stunning, right? It's a
Right.
place, but you'll see families and people walking their dogs and it's just yeah, it's one of my favorite spots actually in the city.
Oh, I love that. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about the scavenger hunt book too. I think that could be fun for families too.
Oh my goodness. Yes, that was my second book, DC Scavenger. And it's funny, I'll tell you that I have four clues in Congressional Cemetery that are in this book. So the way this book is formatted, there are 17 different neighborhoods across DC. They're all in DC. And that's something that's important to note because my other two books do go out a little bit into Maryland and Virginia, like, the surrounding.
Right. Yeah.
The scavenger is strictly DC. And the idea was to keep it in the city and choose neighborhoods that are accessible and walkable. Each neighborhoods, there's 17. There are four quadrants in DC, northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast. Each quadrant is represented. And the hunts are all the clues are found outside. So and each chapter is its own neighborhood. So Capitol Hill has a neighborhood. The National Mall, I gave them a hunt because how can you
Oh,
not?
yeah, exactly.
DuPont Circle, Georgetown, they're all separate. So you can do one hunt or you can do all 17 and you can do them in any order. They're listed alphabetically. And the way that it's formatted is in the beginning, this is DuPont Circle, for example, the beginning has a very short paragraph that gives a little bit of the history, a little bit of the background of the neighborhood, but then also gives you some clues of kind of where to start and
Right.
where. And so each clue is a four-line riddle that could be a mural, it could be a library sign, it could be a monument, it could be a piece of art, it could be a famous restaurant. There are about 350 clues
Oh my
in
gosh.
the book. Some hunts are longer than others. So like the National Mall, you can imagine is a little bit of a bigger hunt. And then some neighborhoods that are a little bit smaller, they have a smaller hunt. So and what's nice about it is that there's like a little photograph next to it that I took. They're all from my iPhone that I did a blow up to give you kind of a little bit of a hint. But
Right.
my publisher also added like a piece of clip art. So you have the clue, you have a photograph, and you have a clip art that helps tremendously.
Oh, exactly.
It's so fun. I have done this hunts with like businesses that are doing team building activities.
Right.
I've done this with real estate groups that, are take out their clients as like a fun outing. I've done it with I teach fitness. So like at my gym, they did one of the hunts and I led that. It's so fun because you have people of all different camps, right? You have the
Yeah.
individuals who are like, I am gonna complete every clue and I'm gonna win. There's not really usually anything to win.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I am gonna, finish this neighborhood hunt in like 45 minutes, and I really take it seriously. Then you have the other camp who are kind of like, I'm here to enjoy my time and to walk around, do something new,
Right.
explore a neighborhood or the city through a different lens. I might stop and get a coffee along the way. I might stop and, pet 17 dogs along the way. And if it takes me 2 hours and I don't solve all the clues, okay, I had a great time. You right? So like it's interesting as I lead and I
Yeah.
join different groups of individuals and all different ages, all different backgrounds, just the different approaches, which I love. I'm a little bit more on the competitive side, so I would probably be in the first camp.
Yeah.
But it's so fun. And like, if you don't get a clue, like if I do it with you, you can text me and I'll give you a little bit of a clue. Or like, people will definitely go on their phone and
Yeah,
it's all
exactly.
it's a fun way to explore the city and different neighborhoods through a completely different way than you might initially explore, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, that was a fun book to write. I did a lot of devising routes and walking. I mean, I walked nonstop and then I would come home and write these little fun riddles and clues and try to weave in some like history or just like fun pop culture things. It was a blast.
Oh,
It
I
was a blast.
bet. I mean, so much fun to put together
Yeah.
and such a
Yeah.
great activity for people that too, maybe they've been to Washington, D.C. before and looking for something a little different. I love it.
And I also found individuals who live here and who have lived here forever, but they may not go or venture to a different neighborhood, right? So they might be able to complete the downtown hunt
Yeah.
well, but maybe a neighborhood like, Woodley Park or like where the zoo is, or, um, a neighborhood that's across the city that they don't typically go to, right? It's
Right.
thing like they'll choose that. And a lot of times it's challenging because it's not a neighborhood they're familiar with, right? They don't know all the little local or the murals or the call boxes or those kind of things that are there.
Right.
Yeah, so I've seen tourists and locals both love this and find different challenges and in different ways.
Yeah, I like it. And I like that you made it spiral too, because that makes it easy to flip the pages.
It's right. It's very user friendly and there are even like lines that on each clue. I don't know how well you
Yeah,
can
I
see.
can see it.
You can like jot down your answer or you could jot down ideas or whatever. So it's these are part of all of my books are part of a multi-city series that my publisher puts out. So, I'm the DC author, but there's
Right.
New York scavenger, a St. Louis scavenger, all over. And so it's part of, but I was really happy too with the way they chose to format it with this.
Yeah,
And it's fun. It's a very user-friendly resource and book for sure. Yeah.
I love it. So now we get to talk food.
Yes, my
Yay.
latest favor of love. This is my most recent book, Unique Eats and Eateries of Washington, D.C. This just came out in March. So it just came
Yeah.
in. So it's fairly new. Um, this was just a blast. So there are about 100 different eateries in the book. And the eateries really span a huge range. So they're everything from restaurants to bakeries to markets to food trucks to a tea shop, distillery, wine kind of stores. So I feel like it's a really nice, diverse collection.
Right.
My goal was to have as much diversity as possible in so many different realms. So different types of cuisine. So anything from, you know, um, Taiwanese to Japanese to American Indian to
Yeah.
barbecue, right?
Right.
To high end. So a couple Michelin places that you maybe once in a lifetime opportunity or you go for, an
Yeah.
anniversary or birthday to $3 pupusas on the street corner or to a food truck that's, very
Yeah, exactly.
fast casual. So that was important to me, that kind of so many different places and individuals are represented. But this book is really focuses on the stories behind the food. And so I interviewed chefs and bakers and restaurateurs and beer and barbecue masters and ice cream makers. And I shared their stories. So a lot of stories about, individuals coming over from immigrating from another country and sharing their and wanting to share their food and their culture and through their eatery or their passion,
Right.
or individuals who changed careers late in life or early on in life and decided like, I used to be a lawyer, but I my passion really is baking, and I want to create DC's first cake potpourri. It's baked by Yale, and now owns bakeries and really delicious, successful places. So like those kind of stories. So I tell a lot of the stories of the individuals. Of course, I talk about the food and drink because how can you not? But it's not what I've gotten asked a lot is that it's not a review book, right? It's not
Right.
like,
No.
but I do say every single place in this book is somewhere that I have eaten or drank at and that I
Right.
deem as delicious, right? So if it's in the book,
Exactly.
you know that it's good. Um,
Right. You've checked it
but
out. You've
I
had it
checked it out.
right.
It's a hard research of whining and dining everywhere. And but this was just such a I loved meeting the individuals. And it's interesting because I interviewed classically trained chefs who trained in Paris, right? And then
Yeah.
I interviewed people who learned to cook next to their grandmother when they were 6 years old, right? So like really the wide spectrum. And pretty much every individual attributed like the same things or same aspects of why they got into this work, family, tradition, upbringing, culture. Those were themes that came up over and over and over again. Um, that I just really resonated with me in the sense of like,
Yeah.
wow, here's this individual who, owns a two Michelin star restaurant, and they're really speaking about food and their passion the same way as the individual who emigrated from Central America and, is sharing his or her, pupusas or arepas or
Right.
and
Yeah.
and like I think maybe like on the surface you wouldn't think that they would have a lot in common, right? Like
Right.
very,
Exactly.
very different um price, all the things. But at the end of the day, share the same passion and drive and the same kind of motivations of why they do this. And it's a hard industry, right? The food
Right.
industry,
That's what I mean. It's such a hard industry, long, long hours. And, with rising costs to pay employees, I mean, food is more expensive, all of that, and still be able to pour your heart into that. And I mean, it just
right?
amazes me that we still have restaurants of, affordability for people.
Agree. Yes. And that was very important to include affordability because, DC is not known to be a cost-effective city, right? It's a pretty expensive city. And some of the restaurants, and I mean it's reflective in that, right? And that's
Right.
not the fault of the restaurants, right? It's just that they're
No.
high rents and cost of food and cost of supplies and materials. Um, and wanting to pay their workers, a competitive
Right. Yeah.
fee. But and those places, of course, have their place, right? We all love
Right.
nice dinner out, and that's,
Yeah.
but it's also not a reality for everyone, right? It's also not even, or even if it is, it might not be something that's not how you may want to spend your hard-earned
Right.
money, right? And so the places like for example, there's a place in my book that it's in Rockville, Maryland, so it is outside of the city, but if this area we call the DMV, like DC, Maryland, and Virginia, because it's so
Right.
connected. So Rockville is a place in Maryland that has incredible food, a lot of ethnic foods. You can find really good like Persian and Asian.
Wow.
It's a wonderful area that's a very diverse area. There's a place in an Exxon gas station there's a Taiwanese little eatery inside the Exxon gas station.
Oh, wow.
And it is, I mean, the woman who owns it, she basically wanted to open up a restaurant. She wasn't able to open up your traditional kind of brick and mortar. And so she found a space and thought, I can make this work. And it's inside of the gas station, right? So it's a
Yeah.
full operating kitchen, but you can imagine the space is very tight.
Yes.
And there are some tables you can almost like they're almost kind of like not picnic style tables, but just very casual. You again,
Right. Right.
and her food is just incredible. My husband had this like we went during like the winter, late fall winter, and so he was eating this like delicious beef noodle soup that was like soothing and like just like comforting and just
Yeah.
flavor. I ordered the stinky tofu, which is like not something that like sounds like it'll be delicious, but it
Yeah.
was delicious. And I had another like vegetarian, I had like a noodle dish. And it's the most unlikely place that you would want to go to have a great meal.
Right.
A
Yeah.
lot of people go, I was, I noticed a lot of people coming in for takeout, right? So you don't have to sit and eat in the gas station, but I wanted the full experience.
Yeah.
And the food is delicious. It's very affordable. It's obviously fast casual, right? At its
Yeah.
at, but it's somewhere that you would probably not think of to go, right? And to eat there. And I would say it's fantastic. It's called Amore Eats. Um,
Oh, I
but yeah,
love that though. I mean, that this woman, like, again, that whole creativity of like having this passion, knowing it's hard to find a space, and then seeing something. And I bet people now make that, you can go anywhere for gasoline, but if you can go there and have lunch too,
right, or just pick up a great meal and take it
right,
home. I mean,
you're gonna detour over there. Yeah, I love it.
oh my God. Yeah, and no, it's great. But there were a lot of those kind of surprises and places that I either stumbled upon or someone recommended it to me, or a lot of individuals who I interviewed, they would say, "Oh, have you spoken to or do you know about this bakery? They have this
Right,
incredible, um, whatever." And so they would refer me or they would connect me. And so I also saw just how connected the industry is, right? And like
yes,
how so many individuals were willing to recommend and share and give praise to other
right,
individuals in the industry. That was really lovely to see too. So yeah, no, it was. I have a lot of people who have talked to me or come up to me or sent me notes of they have like a book club, and so their club is they're doing like a dinner club based on my book, and every month they're going to a different place in my book, right? So kind of
yeah.
really different places together or lots of different ways you can approach it. But I like that idea of doing like a monthly
Oh, I do too.
dinner or just or an outing, like they're
Right.
and getting like going to teaism and getting delicious tea or like, buying loose leaf tea at this institution in DC that you know, um that also has delicious healthy food too. Like, those kind of spaces that I think
Right.
are like, wow, I didn't know there was this brewery that is really environmental friendly in this very kind of like nondescript or not that most famous or popular neighborhood, but they have the most incredible beer and they also
Right.
they're family owned and then they partner with local food trucks. Like those kind of things I love that people are like, wow, I've lived here for 30 years. I didn't know that
Right.
existed. I didn't know that there was amazing Egyptian food right around the corner from me. Right.
Right.
Like those things. I'm like, yeah. So yeah, no, this book was just like I put everything into this book. I mean,
No, and I love it. Yeah. And I don't think for a lot of us outside of Washington, D.C., we don't really have a picture of what Washington food scene is. It's not like a New Orleans. It doesn't have like a theme as
yeah,
such.
I think you're right. I'm from Pennsylvania in the Philadelphia area, and so of course, like cheesesteaks, right? And
Yeah.
Italian food is very prevalent, and Italian markets are really prevalent in the Philadelphia area. I would say quick, like DC. I mean, of course, it's what's great about DC is it's such a diversity that you can really find pretty much every kind of cuisine. Like I said, from Egyptian to West African to Taiwanese to everything. But some of the things that DC is known for, so Ethiopian food is very, very prevalent in DC. There's a huge Ethiopian population
Oh, wow.
here. And so I actually have like a little, when I say chapter, it's really just like a 2-page feature of Ethiopian food. And I highlight a couple different spots because there are so many. It was hard for me to choose one.
Yeah.
Um, so they even have a little area near like Ninth and U Street that it's called Little Ethiopia. So if you're visiting Ethiopian food and it's delicious, it's usually served in this huge platter. It's pretty affordable. You get a lot of food, very good, very healthy, and it's meant to be eaten shared, like in a
Right.
communal, right? And they serve every dish with injera, which is like sponge-like bread. It's made out of
Uh-huh.
flour. I've never made it, but it's almost like a crepe, but like it's like spongy. And you use that to dip up the meats and the yellow split peas and the lentils and all the different things. And there's vegetarian, there's meat heavy. It's Ethiopian food is definitely, if you haven't had it, DC is a great place to try it.
Right.
Half smokes are like kind of like almost kind of like sausages. They kind of serve as the vehicle that you can get all these amazing like toppings and so forth.
Yeah.
Those are pretty prominent. I have a chapter and I have a section on half smokes in my book too. They're like our version of like not like if Philly has cheesesteaks, right? And like
Right. Yeah.
dish, like we have half smokes. You can get them there's a place called Ben's Chili Bowl, which is very, very famous. It's very historical. They're also in my book. They've been around for, decades. They kind of are um, what word am I trying to say? Credited for kind of originating, like being the original half smoke. But of course, there are half smokes all over the place. They have chili, and it's good,
Right.
like, stick to your ribs food.
Yeah.
And then Mambo sauce, which isn't technically from DC, there actually was a huge, and I write about that in my book too. It's this like tangy sauce, this tangy, bold, sweet, savory sauce that people put on different foods, anything from like wings to, and
Yeah.
so it's a fun story because there is some controversy around it.
Okay.
Very fitting for DC. And so those are like the three. I mean, of course, I could go on and on, but those three, like if you're visiting, worth.
Yeah, you
Uh,
gotta try out. Like,
yeah, and if you're staying at the wharf, um, there's the fish market down there, which is unlike the rest of the area that I had said it was transformed. It's very like shiny and new and beautiful, but very new, right?
right.
This fish market is the oldest open air fish market in the country
Wow.
and older than the one in New York, which a lot of people think that that one is. Anyway, are continuously operating open in history. But they have stuck to their kind of humble beginnings. Like it is no frills. So you have this like very shiny and new wharf area with all the bells and whistles. And then you have the fish market it's no frills, but great. They sell
Yeah.
all this local fish. We go down there to get fish a lot.
Oh,
It's just
nice.
so that's an iconic. That's in my book as well. It's just an iconic spot, right? So if you're down there, even if you don't buy any fish, right, it's worth venture. It's very small. It's not this, um, it's a great spot. A couple other places, if you like I love going when I travel. I love going to markets.
Yeah.
I like those like open like hubs, right? That have like almost like if you go to Philadelphia, like Reading Terminal Market or in San Francisco, the what's that
Right.
market? Uh,
There's yeah, there's a market there too.
Famous, and I've been there a million times and it's escaped me. Or like Pike Place, right, in
Right.
Seattle. Um, there's several of them in DC. There's one in Union Market, which is pretty close to where I live, so I tend to go there a lot. Lots of different vendors, everything you can get from, coffee to ice cream to sushi to
Nice.
great donuts to uh dosas, which are like they're in my book, like it's Indian crepe like stuff with savory fillings, delicious. And that's also a way to like eat and sample and not break,
Right.
right?
Yes,
Because there's
exactly.
and they have picnic tables outside. There's a rooftop. It's a great spot. It's a really bustling area. It's really lively. There's sometimes live music. It's awesome. And then there's East Market on Capitol Hill, which is very old and historic and very, very famous. And on the weekends, they also have a flea market,
Oh,
which is
fun. Yeah.
vendors who are artists and jewelry makers, and they'll have like some like pop-ups too of like great like muffins and
Right.
local coffee. That's an awesome place. There's another place called Western Market, which is down by GW, which is closer to Georgetown, so like the opposite end of the city.
Right.
Concept, like, fast casual. So there's a lot of those two that I always recommend if people are visiting to go to one of them, at least because it's an easy way to sample different food on a budget. It's fun. They're usually very, very lively, energetic space, and you're also like kind of with the locals,
I
right?
was
You're
just gonna say the locals are there,
That's
and
where we go, right? Like
right,
if
yeah,
I'm meeting a friend for lunch, a lot of times I'm like, let's just go to Union Market.
yeah,
You can get what you want, I can get what I want, and then we can sit outside or sit inside and like enjoy. And they also do events there too, right? They'll do like salsa class, or they'll do like
yeah,
fun
right.
pictures. And I do, that's what I seek out when I travel,
Yeah,
without
I do
question.
too. Oh yeah,
Like when we were in Lisbon, the first thing I was like, okay, we have to go to Time Out Market, because that's just, I love
yeah.
places. I love, you
Right, I
know?
do too. Well, that's where the
My favorite.
artists are and the locals and just the little pop, like you said, the pop-up person that's just getting started. I
Yeah.
love those. Those are the best things to do when you travel.
Yeah. And because for the most part, the vendors there, they're all local, right?
Yeah,
And there, a lot of them are like, they are all created like from themselves. And like, you're not going to really find a lot of chains there, right? Like,
no,
not gonna, so it's also, I think, really just authentic and a little bit more representative of the city or the space that you're visiting.
yeah. Oh, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so much fun. So
So
tell
much fun.
everyone where they can pick up your books.
So all of my books, if you're in DC, like the local bookstores, Parks and Pros, East City, Solid State, Barnes and Noble, all the places around carry my books. Some gift shops too, like White House Gift Shop and those kind of things. If you're not in DC, I mean, I have a website, JoAnnHillDC.com, that you can buy my books. I'll sign, I'll inscribe,
Yes.
and of course, Amazon and the big online
Right.
Target, all those, they carry my books too. So it's, I had to put that out there because I know it's a little convenience. So
Yeah, it's convenient, and we know that. So,
yeah. So, yeah, but all over the place.
well, great. Thank you so much, Joanne. Have a great 4th of July.
Well, same to you. I love coming on and talking with you, and have a wonderful fourth, and a great rest of your summer.
Yeah, we'll talk again soon, Joanne. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.